It was supposed to be a normal custody visit. A teenager would spend the afternoon with a relative and return home later that day. But when that return never happened and phone calls went unanswered, a concerned parent made a decision that would change the tone of the day entirely. She called the police. For officers, the call came in as a routine welfare check in Curtis Bay, a tight cluster of homes at the edge of South Baltimore. No one could have predicted how quickly the situation would escalate once they arrived at the address on Potee Street. Curtis Bay is a neighborhood where industrial warehouses, rail lines, and residential blocks exist within a few streets of each other. It's the kind of area where people know their neighbors and where unusual activity doesn't go unnoticed. But in July of 2021, a welfare check at one residence would become the start of a case that involved family court, domestic tension, and accusations that would spill into the criminal justice system. The teenager at the center of the call was Dawson Jones, known to friends and family as DJ. He was 15 years old, a high school student with a typical schedule and interests. DJ lived primarily with his mother in Baltimore and was described by those close to him as polite, gentle, and reserved. He spent time with friends, played video games, and participated in the usual routines of adolescence. There was no history of running away, no behavioral flags at school, and no indication that DJ had any reason to avoid returning home. For investigators later reconstructing events, this would become an important detail. DJ was not the kind of teenager who vanished without explanation. DJ's mother had previously been in a relationship with Eric Banks, an active-duty Navy officer assigned to Fort Meade. While Banks was not DJ's biological father, he had acted as a stepfather figure throughout much of DJ's childhood. The two had shared a household, shared routines, and lived in a blended family arrangement that outsiders often perceived as functional. But by 2021, the relationship between Banks and DJ's mother had ended. The separation led to custody agreements, scheduled visitations, and communication that became increasingly tense. Banks continued to have access to DJ through these scheduled visits, one of which had been arranged for early July. While the separation introduced strain, there were no public indications that visitation posed any documented risk to DJ. On July 6th, DJ was dropped off with Banks for one of these scheduled custody visits. It was a weekday in the middle of summer break, a time when teenagers have looser schedules and fewer commitments. Nothing unusual was reported at the drop-off point, and no immediate concerns were raised by either party. The plan was simple. DJ would spend part of the day with Banks and be returned to his mother later. In the weeks leading up to this day, warning signs had been flickering, protective orders had been filed and dismissed, allegations of stalking and emotional abuse had been raised, painting a picture of escalating volatility. But 4 p.m. came and went. DJ did not appear at the pickup spot. His mother, noting erratic messages from DJ's phone earlier, did not wait. She contacted police immediately. Arundel County Police arrived at Eric Banks's home shortly after 4:45 p.m. At the door, Banks was calm but evasive, claiming DJ had left the house on his own, without his belongings. Officers obtained permission to search the home. What they found upstairs shattered the calm facade. In the master bedroom, a hole in the wall, claimed to be a gun safe, concealed a horrific truth. Inside an attic crawl space, officers discovered DJ's body. He was unresponsive. Evidence at the scene, including wet clothing smelling of bleach, suggested a struggle to conceal the crime. The situation escalated instantly. As officers moved to detain him, Banks became combative, allegedly attempting to disarm an officer and crying out that his life was over. It took 5 officers to subdue him. Forensic analysis confirmed the cause of death as asphyxiation. The 15-year-old violinist, a bright student with dreams of becoming a doctor, had been killed in the home that was supposed to be safe. Eric Banks, a Baltimore police officer himself, was charged with murder. In 2022, he entered an Alford plea to second-degree murder, acknowledging the weight of evidence against him. Dawson Jones is remembered not for how he died, but for how he lived, a talented musician, a dedicated student, and a beloved son whose potential was stolen too soon. For DJ's family, the aftermath of the incident has been defined by grief, legal proceedings, and an ongoing pursuit of accountability. DJ's mother has navigated court hearings, custody records, and trial updates while processing the loss of her son. Community members, friends, and classmates expressed shock and sorrow after learning what had occurred. Memorials and vigils were held to honor DJ's life, and relatives have continued to speak about his character, his future, and the void his absence has created. At school, counselors provided resources to students and peers affected by the news. For many, DJ's death was not only a personal loss, but a confrontation with the reality that violence can emerge in spaces that appear familiar and safe. Custody disputes rarely make headlines, and when they do, it is usually because something has gone terribly wrong. This case raises uncomfortable but necessary questions about how family courts, law enforcement, and communities handle domestic conflict when children are placed at the center of it. For DJ's family, the legal process may eventually conclude, but the emotional reality does not end in a courtroom. What do you think about this case? Could this tragedy have been prevented? And what protections should exist for children navigating custody disputes? Share your thoughts.